Hi, and welcome to day 4, 10 Days to Greater Creativity. Thank you for joining me again. We're going to be looking at a creativity tool that I like to try, but it's actually one that helps you make your own creativity tool. That is, you're going to start to make advice for yourself on how to be creative based on what you see and based on your own experiences. So that way the creativity that you come up with, the rules, they don't have to stay rules for long. They are things that are useful to you and perhaps help you to develop other creative ideas. But like I said, it's practicing being creative in kind of a different way than most people. You see, one of the problems with creativity is that we have all these books and workshops, and it's a trendy thing right now to be creative and to have creativity in the business world and in education and all over the place. But the problem is that if everybody's looking at the same thing on how to be creative or going to the same places, then it doesn't stay creative very long because everybody's doing it. Everybody is thinking alike and trying the same things. So this tool to get you to think about how to make your own advice and look at creativity in your own way should help you stand out from the crowd. So one of the things about creativity that I've noticed is that you're always going to try to find the connection between two things that are not alike, or maybe even more than two things. But usually that's a definition of creativity, is connecting things that formerly weren't connected. You find a new way to make connections. And that's great for creativity, but if it is something that everybody's trying, how can you be different? Well, I'm going to be asking you to look at what's different about two things. Don't just think apples and oranges. Think apples, make sure it's on the camera here, and onions. So if we were doing the normal thing for creativity, we might say, well, how are these two alike? There's our camera. How are apples and onions alike? And we can look at shape and we can look at color. I'll get the other ones up here. And we might look at some other things, that they're foods, that they're used in some similar dishes. We can try all different ways to see how they're alike. Now, how are they different? Well, a little bit easier question in a way. It isn't like apples and oranges where you can't compare things. If they're different, how are they different? You see, our DNA is very alike among all of us. There's just a small amount that's different. And that's what you have to be able to see in things. Sometimes you have to see not just how they're connected, but where's the disconnect? Where are they not connected? For example, if I take an apple and I have it in half here, and I'll try to find it at the camera, you have a star inside. Do the same thing with an onion, however, and although you can't see it too well, you have a lot of circles, a lot of concentric circles. Now, if I cut the apple on a diagonal, and I'll try to find the camera here, it sort of makes a heart shape or maybe a butterfly, not the star. I cut the onion on the diagonal. Again, I've got concentric circles or ovals. So what does that tell me? If I wanted to make some advice for myself about the differences I notice between apples and onions, well, I might say look to the inner shape, because I know that in apples it changes, in onions not so much. So that might be a good creative tool for me, is just some advice. Look for the inner structure. Things might look alike on the outside, but you might have to look underneath to see how they're different. That might be good advice for me if I have a creative rut, is to look at something and look for the differences, look under the hood, so to speak. Another thing that I know about apples and onions is that if I would hold my nose and close my eyes and bite into them, they'd have similar texture, and because if I couldn't smell them, they might even have similar taste. So what can I do for that? What advice would I give myself? If I'm thinking about it, I might say, what are the two things that make me aware that that thing is different? In this case, it might be three things. It might not just be how they look, my perception of them, or how they smell, again another sense, or even how they taste. But if I was using this as a creativity tool, I might say, okay, what are two things that I notice that make this thing different? So again, that one's a little bit of more of a stretch than the first one, looking at the inner structure, but it could be a rule that I could use myself. So with apples and onions, I just want you to think about how things are different, because it builds awareness. It makes you more aware of the connectedness. You get to see the whole picture of something. If you're not just looking to connect unconnected things, but you're also looking at where's the gap, where's the difference. You sometimes have to celebrate that difference, because isn't that what creativity is? Looking for something novel and different anyway. So be able to look at the whole picture. Look at the differences as well as how you see that they're connected, because that can be creative too. You can take two things that are very, very similar, and if you can find the differences in them, then that is also being creative. So try it today. Make yourself some rules that you notice from the differences that you can apply elsewhere, that you can transfer over. It might give you a taste for some other kinds of creativity, and it might help you see some things that you haven't before. So go ahead and try the apples and onions test and let me know what you think. And thank you for joining me for day 4. As we get into tomorrow's lesson, day 5, I'm looking at how you can take care of yourself in the future, and I'm going to be noting some creative inspirations for that, but also how you can help yourself now for being creative in the future. And thank you, and have a great day.